Today we're going to talk about the high performers limbo, a problem that nobody is really talking about. I'm going to start by defining what this limbo is, give you 5 signs to know if you're in this stage of life, give you 2 proposed solutions by society in terms of what you can do, and then my solution so you can balance being high performance and working towards your goals with also building peace in your life. So without further ado, let's get to today's presentation. How to make your life great when it's already pretty good. So what's the high performers limbo, right? If we look at this, you've checked all the boxes. You have a successful career, you've got a solid group of friends, you maybe even have a girlfriend or a wife to share your life with. So from the outside, people look at you and say, this guy is living a pretty good life. But from the inside, there's a gap that you can't quite name between the life that you built, the life you're living externally, and how it actually feels for you. You can't point to something specific and say, this is the problem. It's not like you're overweight and you know you have to lose weight, or it's not like you're afraid of people and you know you have to build social skills, right? But things just don't feel as right as you thought they would feel. And actually, I became aware of this problem in my own life by getting to my goal state of building my own business and being time-free, location-free, being able to go wherever I wanted, learning how to socialize with people, waking up whenever I wanted, going to bed whenever I wanted, working in a profession that I created. So I enjoyed what I did. I was living a good life, but then I still found the stories that my mind were creating were still there. But most importantly, in the quiet moments, there was a question in the background. Is this it? What do I do now? Right? So if you're in this stage of life, here's 5 signs to know that this is what's happening for you. First, like we talked about a little bit earlier, you've achieved what your younger self would have called success, but your mind feels like a liability. Or maybe you haven't achieved it if you're more proactive, but you're in the right trajectory and you just know there's a missing piece. Second, if you aren't productive, you feel like you're falling behind. So a lot of your identity and confidence is placed on your performance, and maybe you feel like without your performance, you don't even know who you would be. Third, you feel lonely when it's 11:30 p.m. on a weekday and you're just sitting at home doing your own thing. Or maybe you feel misunderstood by people around you. So alone time automatically gets translated into lonely time. And building your own relationship with yourself is something you want to do, but you just don't know how to. Fourth, you want to build your own version of success, right? Your ideal life, not anyone else's. And you want to do this without going to the extremes like chasing money or becoming a monk. I think we're living at a time where extremes are really glorified. That's the word. So extremes are really glorified. And what I mean by that is you get to a point where you make money and it's almost like this voice in your head goes, oh, why not make more? And then we're presented content that glorifies that. People showing their supercars, their mansions. Look at my amazing mansion in Miami. Look at all these cars I have. The reason I have this and you don't is I know something that you don't, so I'm going to sell you the dream and create more craving for you to actually want this, right? But you may be someone looking at that and saying, is this really what's next for me? Or is there a way where I can create the life that I want? And in the meantime, also build more peace and confidence and have more leverage. So you care more about having leverage and doing things that matter compared to making hundreds of millions of dollars or going to the mountains and becoming a monk. So you want the benefits of a peaceful mind and the benefits of making money meeting your needs at the minimum effective doses. And then from there, you can get what you want out of life instead of taking on someone else's vision and working towards that because that's just what you were fed as the dream. And lastly, you're in the high performer limbo if you can't fully relax without guilt or numbing yourself with social media, Netflix, or food. So a lot of the guys I work with one of the biggest things they actually do is they're such high performers throughout the day. At night, their mind is still active fixing problems. So then they turn on Netflix or they look at social media, or sometimes they even go on learning binges on Twitter about fascia or some other subject where they find themselves passed out on the couch the next morning, right? So these are the concrete signs that you might be in the high performers limbo. And for where you're at, the world offers two solutions. The first solution is to push harder, build more discipline, set bigger goals to become the best version of yourself. And this kind of works, right? For example, when I was making a few $1,000s a month living in Mexico by the beach, I had my own apartment, I felt a lot better compared to when I was living in a 2-bedroom, 5-person apartment at UCLA finishing my computer science degree while trying to build a business. Life was 10, 100 times better. But eventually the money evened out because my lifestyle creep wasn't really that high. So reaching a higher level of your goal is good, but if you got into the dream state you would have wanted as a kid, a place where your younger self would have said, this is success, and when you're alone with your thoughts, the emptiness still seems to return, what happens is you're in this dopamine cycle where you numb the emptiness by jumping to the next goal and you achieve the next goal. And then the thing is, you almost adjust over time, so each achievement feels less fulfilling. And you can kind of see, if you future project, that this is not a viable strategy for the rest of your life. So pushing harder with force does help you get to your goals, but it doesn't necessarily give you the emotional state that you need to build leverage in the effort that you put in. Full solution number 2 is slowing down and letting go. So this is where we go to the other extreme, where we just say, all right, I feel so burnt out, I'm going to take a month doing nothing, go to Southeast Asia, go to India, find myself to a retreat. I'm going to look at my inner child and own my neglected desires, maybe explore parts of myself that haven't had a voice before. Now, first of all, this is extremely good because the most important relationship we can all build is the relationship that we have with ourselves. And the higher the quality of that relationship is, the higher our quality of relationships are with other people, right? However, if we let go of outcomes too much, then we simply don't contribute to the world to the same extent. And lastly, eventually what happens is, as great as it is to acknowledge parts of yourself, with time, goals and ambition call out to you again, right? There's that hero's journey you feel inspired to fall back into, but you don't know how to balance going after your goals with your newfound perspective of also wanting to balance your well-being, your peace, and your confidence. So the key realization here is whether you decide to push harder or to just surrender and let go, neither of these options actually provide you with a sustainable approach to engineer your world, both in terms of your belief system, your emotional states, but also externally when it comes to building the right strategy, into a place where you feel at peace and you're making progress towards your ideal life. So we don't want either extreme, we want the middle path, like the Buddha said, the balanced path, right? And what you need to get there is an upgrade to your mental operating system so you can think clearly, you can decide with conviction, and you can build your ideal life from inspiration. And the way we do that is through this ideal self and life pyramid. So the core idea here is at the top layer, we have our goals, right? I want to get a promotion. I want to build a successful business. I want to get a girlfriend. I want to have a wife and a family. I want to get to 12% body fat. I want to be healthy when I'm in my 60s. Whatever goals you have in the external world. Underneath what fuels those goals is our mental operating system in terms of the beliefs we have, the states we have access to, as well as the nervous system experience we have day to day. So we can have the same goals, but with a new operating system in terms of our belief, we will have completely different outcomes. And the way I found to illustrate this, after working with hundreds of men, is through this pyramid that I call your ideal self, ideal life pyramid. At the bottom, what we're aspiring towards is having our mind as our greatest ally. Because what happens is, if we don't have that, right, we will struggle with self-sabotage and we'll put a ceiling on our potential. So what's interesting is a lot of situations in life are not black and white, they're in the gray zone. And based on what our belief system is, we can take it as a positive or a negative. So having our mind as our greatest ally allows us to build from a solid foundation. It's the belief system that makes us face difficult situations and then decide to keep going, right? And this can be in your career. Maybe you have a tough conversation with your boss, and someone with a healthy belief system takes that as, wow, I'm so glad I got feedback from my boss so I can get better. Whereas someone with a belief system of I'm not enough may see that as proof of why they're not enough. And with the same experience, one of their building blocks for ideal life is growing for the person with a healthy belief system, and the other one starts crumbling simply based on their belief system without anything different. So once we have our mind as our greatest ally, as a foundation, so we have beliefs that empower us to create the life that we want, to build connection and confidence, then the next part is having a winning strategy, right? Because sometimes people tend to do this thing where they get really into belief work, but they tend to have magical thinking around what they can achieve. So they just believe, oh, if I do enough affirmations around money, I will have money. But we still need a good strategy in terms of the goals that I want to have or the goals that we want to achieve, right? I can believe that I'm going to be an in shape person and I'm a healthy person, but if I eat 5,000 calories a day, no matter what I believe, what reality will give me is being overweight. And I know that because I used to be overweight. So without a winning strategy, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, and it's also easy to waste time working on things that don't matter. And this is where having a healthy belief system and the right strategy allows us to create leverage. So we can put in less effort to what we're working on, but get more returns on the effort that we put in. So this is like the foundational piece, and then we have the icing on the cake, which is the third layer, gamified habits. As you might know at this point, maybe you do, maybe you don't, in data-driven actualization, we built our own software, Actualize OS, to gamify the process of tracking and sticking to core habits. Now, without gamified habits, what happens is people have habits, but they feel almost like obligations they need to fulfill, so they can stay consistent maybe for a few weeks or months, but eventually they burn out. But if we bring video game principles into habit building, it actually becomes something fun. Like I used to play League of Legends growing up. I would look forward to coming back home and doing a ranked game, playing Wayne, Lee Sins, whatever characters there are these days. And this same emotional experience can be created when it comes to consistency with habits. So when we gamify the habits, on top of having our mind as our greatest ally, having a winning strategy, now we're not going to struggle with burning out or lack of consistency. And then the last part is having a brotherhood, right? Because so much of this journey is about having people who see you as who you are and having people meet you at your full depth. So what I mean by that is they may be parts of yourself that you want to hide from the world. And having a safe place where you have other guys working on this and other guys going through struggles that you might be going or celebrating your wins with you, build the belief that you're worth celebrating and what you're going through is okay. If you try to do it alone, it's easy for this journey to feel meaningless and lonely. And also it's easy to give yourself a way out, where you just say, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow or next month or whatever, right? So this is kind of the underarching overlying method, the method that we use in DDA, so that you're not just pushing hard or you're not just letting go, but you're using the benefits of both approaches to create a life that you want while feeling more at peace, more connected, and more confident. Now, this is a lot to remember, so what I did over time was to actually boil this down to a simple daily loop that I call the RDT loop. It's 3 steps every day for 20 minutes a day. You regulate your nervous system through a meditation practice. That takes around 10 minutes. 2, you debug 1 belief per day. That takes around 5 minutes. And then you track and gamify core metrics. That also takes around 5 minutes. So with this RDT loop, we have all 4 aspects of this pyramid built into it. And if you want to learn this at more depth, because you realize, oh, what I'm going through is actually the high performers limbo, and I want to do something about it, you can check out my video called the RDT Loop, the daily system to turn your mind into your biggest asset, and that will give you the exact process to use this loop to start creating changes in your life. Now, I understand there's a lot of people who talk online, so you might be skeptical. So I want to give you an example from a client. One of the clients I've been working with is a validation engineer in his late 20s. And before we started working together, he grew up in a tight box where life was all about being the good son, the good person, get a good job, get good grades, have good friends who are a good influence, and then the girlfriend will come, people will like you anyway. Just play it safe, right? Don't be too much was the idea that he was fed when he was growing up. So he had a good friend circle and a decent job, but he would avoid dating or meeting strangers because it just felt very risky and he didn't feel 100% safe. And on the right, you can see his starting point, tracked and actualized OS. He started with 0 meditation and his mood as a 5 out of 10. Now, throughout our work together in 2025, he was able to be himself in dating and social life. Now, obviously, it wasn't a magical process. He put in a lot of effort, right? So if we add up his 2025 stats, during that time, he submitted 125 reports, met more than 450 strangers. That's pretty crazy. 81 workouts and 1,895 minutes of meditation, which is longer than 16 movies, right? So through his effort and through the guidance, he was able to see some results. First, quantitatively, his mood went from a 5 to a 6.6 average, right? Massive change. Then he also had a lot of changes in his belief systems. He said, reowned a projection around the shadow pattern that affected me and potentially healed the core wound. Time will tell. Had an interaction that would have made me upset in the past, but it didn't this time. It's the small wins that compound over time. Cool to see some of that inner work pay off and help me not give my power away. When you're not phased off by other people's reactions, what happens is you have more power to create the life that you want. Lastly, he said, express myself exactly how I wanted in conversations without filtering. Was quite surprised with how natural it was. Shadow work really is priceless. So this is just to show you the potential that the RDT loop has to change someone's life, not just in 7 days, in 30 days, and if you stick through with it, to a full year, right? But first, I would recommend starting with a 7-day experiment. And to make this very simple on you, I built this 7-day data-driven calm protocol with simple prompts and a tracker that takes 20 minutes a day for 7 days and guides you through using the RDT loop to create a change in your life. And by trying this, you don't have to take my word for it. You can simply track and watch what changes in your own life and data. If you want this resource, go to the link in description, datadrivenactualization.com/playbook. Now, if you're the type of person who wants to understand something and be bought in before running it, so you're more like, oh, I want to understand it and then I will run it, versus the person who goes, oh, I'm going to actually try this and see if it makes a difference, I would recommend watching my video, the RDT Loop, the daily system to turn your mind into your biggest asset. Once you watch that, you'll have a complete overview of the system, and then you can decide if you want to run this for 7 days. So thanks for watching this video. We covered what the high performer limbo is, 5 signs to know if you're stuck in this limbo, 2 common approaches society recommends, and a balanced approach using the RDT loop so you can take your life from a good life on paper to the great life that you want to live for the rest of your time. Thanks for watching.